What's up, y'all? My name is Andre Hopkins, also known as Entre Interview. Today I'm joined here by EG Coach Faded. How are you feeling?
Glad after that last win, but it was definitely good.
And y'all, I was gonna ask this later, but I just kind of want to start with it. On Sunset, you're watching. What point were you getting a little stressed? At what point were you like, uh oh?
I think for me, I'm always stressed. I always want to see the boys performing well, especially during the matches. I think keeping up that intensity in the coaching booth is one of those big things. But as we were losing like the third or fourth round in a row, is kind of getting to me a little bit. But I always have faith in the boys. So.
Or always trusting them to close out. I'll just start with second question then. So today's series across the all maps. What did you like? What do you think needs to be cleaned up for the future run?
I think it's more about us playing our game. I think at a certain point we kind of teeter off a little bit into a little bit more individualism, I would say. But the strength is when you play as a team, right? And I think that's kind of what we've been practicing is really just getting on the same page. So especially as we go further along in the play-ins and hopefully into the playoffs, that's something that I want people to see in our team because we have very talented players. I think I saw a lot of potential in Pancakes and Zero on the EG Acad, and the three remaining members of EG. They're very strong. Potter's a great leader, and the systems hopefully the public gets to see that in action. In the future matches. So.
I talked to Pancakes before. You talked about the individualism part. Before I talked to him after the MIBR game, he talked about part of the reason the team had managed losing that Haven that time was it kind of playing more for themselves instead of for the team. Do you think that's something that the team kind of needs to clean up and play more together even when things get tough?
I think, it's kind of like human nature, to kind of have that fight or flight, mentality. I think the difference is that I think the boys have this mentality of, I want to do it for the guys, right? Like I want to do it for the team. And I think those are the situations where you really have to dig down deep and rely on each other and perform what you need to do. And I think especially in team sports competitively, not just in esports, but, physical sports too as well. That's kind of the big thing, like there can always be that hot shooter. But at the end of the day, it really comes down to how your team is playing for the long run. So, those moments like in the MIBR match, right? Like I think, that match was really good for us, even though it was a loss, to kind of teach us, hey, you know what, like this is what happens when you try to, do things on your own. And I think that's something that, we've been ironing out in practice. So yeah.
Just a good thing to learn for. Don't try to make hero plays like you said. Don't do it yourself. Play with the team. Play how we usually play.
Yeah, I think hero plays will come out, especially when the hero plays are important to a certain extent. And I think those shine, but they shine the best when you're doing it within the team system. So yeah.
Going to Sunset, we saw a different comp from C9 than what they played before. Zeltz is now on
Mhm.
the Deadlock. We saw Jack over on the Sova now. Did you guys kind of expect a comp swap from their last performances, or was it unexpected going in?
I think, especially at this point of the season, I think all teams have kind of seen different compositions, especially in practice. And so I think it's one of those things where, who knows what's going on in their camp and what's going on. But I think the way that Potter prepares the team is to be ready for anything. So I think the team, especially with the time that we've had so far, we've been able to adjust to many different comps. A lot of the teams are playing the double duelist on a lot of these maps, but we've run into these double sentry comps, and we've seen them, we studied them. So, I think the team is really well prepared for any changes or any quote unquote like surprises.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think with C9, I think there's things to be expected to change, especially with the coaching staff change and the new
Mhm.
players coming in for this split. So it didn't really surprise me per se that they had a new composition, but it's not a new composition, right? Like we've seen these Cypher deadlock compositions on different maps too as well. So yeah.
Just a lot about kind of trying to adapt on the fly, taking what
Hmm.
you've played against before, and just using that.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. We know Oxy going into this game. He's been on a crazy hot streak in the last few games. Was there anything specifically game plan wise of like trying to shut him down, or did you just kind of play your game?
I think focus is always going to be, playing your own game. Yes, Oxy's been on a hot streak, but all teams in Tier 1, they all have that, Oxy type person, right?
Hmm.
Like, on G2, they got a lot of good shooters. Like, you can't underestimate Baby Bay, you can't underestimate Trent, you can't underestimate Leaf, so a lot of these teams in general, they always have that star or that stud. Some teams may have more than others, but I think the way that the game plan is derived is meant to, uh, you know, even though that one person can have that huge individual performance, it shouldn't necessarily alter the outcome as long as we play as a team in our game. So.
Okay. And then on the desk, and then on the broadcast for Inside Show, and then, like I said, some people on the desk were talking about EG playing kind of a contact heavy style. How do you kind of adapt for a player like Oxy who you know is going to pull out the op, try to counter that? How do you guys kind of try to have to play around something like that, like a player with the op coming out?
I think in general, being able to use your util, understanding how the map is, playing with the information, like these are all, I think, very common themes to find that opper. Same thing with playing against like someone like Demon One, right? He's gonna be able to hit those shots. He's gonna have those lines, and he's gonna play an insane game. I think, especially with the control heavy style, it really that kind of thing is factored into the game plan. Because we are looking for that information, right? So yeah.
Okay. And then, I mean, I was wanting to ask a little bit about we see you guys banning split pretty often. What kind of does that bring going in? You have to play a team's better map. Like today, we saw C9 with Breeze, and in the past picking not picking split into Lev, but letting Lev pick split. What is kind of goes into the game plan, knowing you're gonna have to play a team who's really good on a certain map?
Um, I think the team is well prepared across all maps. I think
Mhm.
it's just more choosing, the lesser of the evil. For us, in my opinion, I think that the guys are ready to play any map, honestly. I think the way that the team is made in Potter structure is very geared towards, not necessarily being as scared of a map or scared of a team with the composition. So, for me, it really just comes down to, what do we want to play? It's like it's in our hands, So if we always think about it as, being afraid to play a team on their best map or what they're doing, then you're always kind of shaping the way you play towards, what they want or what you expect them to do. And if they come with a last minute like change or, composition change, for example, you're
Mhm.
going to be very unprepared for those situations, right? So I think it really is just the balance. But don't want to give away too many secrets about that one because, that's going to be part of our game plan in the future too. So,
So again, it kind of just comes back to playing your own game, playing your own style.
mhm.
I mean, I had a question, but I spaced it. So I'll move to the next one here. We've seen you prior on EG Academy as head coach,
Mhm.
before on in EMEA head coaching. What do you think that kind of coaching experience has brought you now being an assistant coach, and how has that kind of formed your way of thinking the game?
I think in EMA it's a very different style of thinking. I appreciate my experience over there a lot. I think it taught me a lot, especially working with the players that I had on that team too as well. I learned a lot about not necessarily just things inside of the game, but things outside of the game. I think player management and relationships are super important. EG Acad, bless EG because they gave me the opportunity to build out a roster that the way that I wanted to, especially with Mitch by my side back then. And it was really focused on seeing what kind of talent that may fit with the, EG main roster. And, we always had the main roster in mind while working through the CAD system. Obviously, we wanted to win in tier two as well, but it really gave us the opportunity to, when the main roster needed to make changes like it did before this split, that we would have candidates ready to fill, any shoe that was needed for the roster. And I think, Pancakes and Zerona, I think they fit the shoe very well. The synergy and just the way that this main team is playing together, practices are fun. I think it's one of those big things where people tend to lose that enjoyment along the way when things get rough. But even the guys that stuck around, Supa, Bao, like DJs like mad props to them because they put in mad work to kind of, bring the two into as well. And really get everybody assimilated. Potter structure is very well adapted to bringing, these newer players in and being able to find their fit and their role within the team. And I've had previous relationships with Supa back, a couple years ago on Phase. Bao, I've kept in touch since his days on Lemonade Stand. And Douglas is someone who's very easy to work with for me. Very passionate, very caring, very talented person. So I think the transition from EGA to the main roster and being the AC, Potter gives me a lot of room to work with the players. I'm always focused on how can I help her system, how can I help her structure, because that's the most important thing, right? Like we want to be on the same page, especially with the players too as well. So that's been my focus. But I've been given a lot of opportunities to work with the players. They'll approach me on different micros or different VOD reviews or different things that they need to as well to be better fit for the system. So I enjoy my time here a lot. I think it's a very strong opportunity, and hopefully that translates into the way the guys play on the server during matches.
I was sitting there when you said lemonade stand. I feel like I just got like a blast. I haven't heard that in forever. It feels like that was
Yeah.
like whoa. What do you think the biggest growth points of the team have been since you joined into the main roster alongside Jerome and Pancakes?
Biggest growth points of the roster. I think a lot of it is confidence. Seeing, especially with Superman and Bao, seeing how confidently they play in the server, and being able to make those decisions, which they had beforehand, but I think the trust that they have with each other, with the new guys, is super strong. I think Dijizin plays. Digitson's always going to play the way he does. He's explosive. At times he can also be very controlling of situations. He's a great opper, and I think it just the way that they are now is very confident. And that's, especially in practices, they're very, very strong, very confident on maps. Like even today, for example, right? Like they never gave up, right? On Sunset, especially when we're getting beat down after we're up so much. They're always figuring solutions. They're always staying confident, always trying to figure out ways and solutions. So yeah, I think the roster is definitely developing a lot more as time goes on. So hopefully for our next match, we get that dub and be able to make it into playoffs.
I mean, it'd be a big advantage to be able to go through uppers, of course.
Hmm.
So I ask everybody this. I have a playlist I make, and I ask for song recommendations from players and coaches. Do you have a song you'd like to add to the playlist?
Ooh, song for me is probably, if we're talking about like my favorite, "Dreams and Nightmares" by Meek
Okay,
Mills.
that's a great one.
Yeah, that
That's
one
a
that
great
one's
one.
always a solid one. Great motivator. So
That song's that one. I get it. That song, hype song right there. That's a good one to listen to before you have to go do some. It's a good
yes,
choice.
sir.
So upcoming game versus FURIA, of course, winner gets into the upper bracket of play-ins. I mean, how do you feel going into that matchup?
I mean, I'm confident. Practice will tell a lot. I think this match was good for us. I'm always going to be very confident with the team and going into it. Furia has definitely shown a huge bounce back, especially from the split into these play-ins. So they can't be underestimated. I think Calm is a great addition to their team, and we see how his ability to shoot in the server even today, but also his way of supporting his teammates. It's something that's going to bring a lot of synergy to them. So this next match I think is going to be it's going to be a fist fight for sure.
I'm gonna say you gotta make sure you can qualify so you guys can play
Hmm.
Lev. So Bao, I talked to him a few weeks ago. And he said his dream would be able to beat Sato, eliminate him. So I'm sure he'd be looking forward to that.
He says that, but like, like they're like besties. So, but I think it's always one of those things for me. I think it means a lot to be able to beat these teams, especially now going into playoffs. I think last split, going against losing to MIBR, losing to NRG, and losing to Lev too as well. I think those are the three teams that I really want us to beat. I think it's they're very very strong teams. So it is something that we're training for. We're definitely training to be able to beat the upper echelon.
I hope to see it. And like Bao said, I hope to see you guys beat Lev so you can quote beat that little kid down. Is what he said. So,
Oh, bow.
so Baited, thank you very much for your time. Good luck in your upcoming game against Fira and in the rest of playoffs and play-ins, and have a great rest of your night.
Perfect. Appreciate you. Thank you for your time.